thank all of our witnesses. I thank the chairman for holding this meeting. Look, in my 8 years in Congress, I came in June of 2016, we've seen an unprecedented amount of weaponized government. We've seen it abused in every way imaginable. This isn't a new phenomenon, as Bastiat recognized when law and morality contradict each other. The citizen has the cruel alternative of either losing his moral sense or losing his respect for the law. Frankly, the radicals are counting on it. We've seen the IRS go after religious and conservative nonprofits, the ATF go after law-abiding gun collectors, pro-life grandmothers sent to prison for years for peaceful protests here in Washington, D.C., parents targeted for speaking up at school board meetings, fintech companies targeted and debanked because they posed a threat to the status quo. The list goes on. The American Bar Association estimates that there are some 400,000 potential crimes that agencies can prosecute that exist between the federal code and mountains of politicized rulemakings and regulations, hopefully thinned out by the recent Chevron deference decision and the administrative law judge decision, and some other good ones over the past 2 weeks. The average American likely commits something that can be construed by a corrupt prosecutor as a federal crime. What happened to President Trump can happen to any American who has the audacity to upset someone in a powerful position. That's not supposed to happen in the United States of America. Western civilization is based on the rule of law, and that this law must be both impartially administered and fairly adjudicated. Kangaroo court spectacles, such as what we witnessed in New York, are fundamentally an attack on and perversion of the rule of law and its foundation in our society. The list of abuses to railroad President Trump is obscene and outrageous, but calling it that is an understatement. Let's be clear. Alvin Bragg campaigned openly on his persecution of President Trump. His was clearly a political act, and that is the only reason this case was designed and executed against the current administration's political enemy. Professor Smith, has there ever been a citizen not named Donald Trump that has been prosecuted with these same crimes anywhere in America?
Well, it depends on what one considers the crime. For example, they'll say, well, lots of people are prosecuted for false records under New York law. But what they're not prosecuted for is for false records, covering up a crime under New York law that makes it illegal to violate some unnamed law to influence an election. And no, I've never seen anything like that.
Has anyone ever successfully paid a hush money settlement to anyone and counted it as a campaign expense?
Well, not that I know of. And I think common sense would tell us that paying for a non-disclosure agreement or any kind of legal settlement is not, based on things done outside of office, like 10 years before you were a candidate, is not a campaign expense. And we wouldn't want it to be, because if you think about it, that would mean that candidates could use their campaign funds for exactly that kind of thing.
It would be a horrible precedent.
Right, yeah.
Every day we see headlines coming out of New York City, illegal immigrants, all kinds of cases, and some of you in your opening statements highlighted how, Mr. Fahey highlighted in particular how Alvin Bragg ran on this progressive platform as a prosecutor. You know, as a former prosecutor in your career, if you were never bound by the Sixth Amendment, if you could turn any action retroactively into a crime, if you could bias a jury by whatever means you wanted to, is there a single citizen in America who would be safe from a politicized prosecution?
I don't really think so. If you really targeted someone and looked for a way to charge them, I don't want to say that, I mean, I'm sure there's some people that could not be, and theoretically, but there are so many people that would be vulnerable to being prosecuted if somebody is targeting them for political reasons or whatever reasons. And that's really what's scary about this. And I think your point with Alvin Bragg, it's funny that on one hand he runs on not prosecuting the law, and then all of a sudden on this case, this is the most aggressive stance that's ever been taken probably on these sort of
Clearly
charges.
not the rule of law.
Right. And crime is going through the roof. I think the seven biggest felonies the last 2 years are the highest year since '06. So it's like he's not prosecuting the law equally or against you know, other people and more serious criminals.
Thank you. And look, Judge Wilson, you referenced it in your statements about the precedent and the court's recognition in Andres versus the United States. But as early as 1898, the court said that a defendant enjoys a, quote, constitutional right to demand that his liberty should not be taken except by the joint action of the court and a unanimous verdict of a jury of 12 persons. I thank Chairman Jordan for holding this vital hearing today. What we are witnessing is an unprecedented attack on the rule of law and a weaponization of our criminal justice system.